Welcome to Kingsholm, where Gloucester are looking to maintain their 100% record on home turf in front of a sellout crowd here today. Let's go and see how confident the fans are. So, Gloucester are back on home turf today. How confident are you that they can maintain their 100% record this year?
A little bit uncertain at the moment. Sellar are very physical and difficult side, got some good players, so I think it's going to be a really hard game today. If we can front up with them in the front five at the breakdown, and I think we'll win.
Looking at the team selection, there's one notable return. It's Ben Morgan at number 8. How much of impact do you think he can make on his return?
Yeah, he's a quality number 8, and we rely on him as a ball carrier, and I think it's quite good that he's back because it allows Ruin to move across to 6 and gives us some pretty good attacking options.
Sale Sharks at home, you confident today?
Yes, we're confident today. I know we had a bad loss last weekend against Wasps, but today, with the good bench we got and the good 15, I reckon it's going to be close, but I reckon Gloucester will definitely do it today, and a good score. So I would say about 32-12 for Gloucester.
Midway point in the season, Gloucester lying 4th. Is that above your expectations, or are you happy?
Well, happy with that. We didn't expect it, but I'm very happy with that. I was thinking top 6, but top 4, or we keep saying the 4 for the, for the new year as well. I'll be happy. Premiership final.
Leicester to former Leicester. And now here goes Trinder, who is in sparkling form this season, to Hines. Trinder's up in support, Hines goes on his own, and it's the away voices that shout loudest, earliest. Lovely Gloucester try.
Takamuni wins the ball lovely off the line out, and they're able to get in behind some pretty sloppy path defence.
Yules, here is Priestland, and here goes Watson again with Rokandaguni in close proximity, held onto by Halai Fanua.
He's on the mark. Let's have another look at this again. There's nothing wrong with the tackle. He times it right. It's a good, solid contact. Unfortunately, the tackler just rolls the wrong way and gets himself.
Honig again. Just that little spin before the tackle of Yules allowed him to get the ball away, and that is wonderful. How about that from a tight head prop? John Arfoa with the artistry.
Just having a look at this, just wait.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's a fine play on.
More than any in a season. They are that close to snatching it. They think they've scored.
Stop there. Okay, that's on the line. Tom, yes, mate. There, the ball touches the line. It is a try.
Into the noise when this is confirmed. First away win of the season, and it's a win that they treasure above all others. Gloucester have done it at the Rec. They're winning away. It's Gloucester with this conversion, 22.
Welcome to Kingsholm, where Gloucester are looking to maintain their 100% record on home turf in front of a sellout crowd here today. Let's go and see how confident the fans are. So, Gloucester are back on home turf today. How confident are you that they can maintain their 100% record this year?
A little bit uncertain at the moment. Cellar are very physical and difficult side, got some good players, so I think it's going to be a really hard game today. If we can front up with them in the front five at the breakdown, and I think we'll win.
Looking at the team selection, there's one notable return. It's Ben Morgan at number 8. How much of impact do you think he can make on his return?
Yeah, he's a quality number 8, and we rely on him as a ball carrier, and I think it's quite good that he's back because it allows Ruin to move across to 6 and gives us some pretty good attacking options.
Sale Sharks at home, you confident today?
Yes, we're confident today. I know we had a bad loss last weekend against Wasps, but today, with the good bench we got and a good 15, I reckon it's going to be close, but I reckon Gloucester will definitely do it today, and a good score. So I would say about 32-12 for Gloucester.
Midway point in the season, Gloucester lying 4th. Is that above your expectations, or are you happy?
Well, happy with that. We didn't expect it, but I'm very happy with that. I was thinking top 6, but top 4, or we keep saying the 4 for the, for the new year as well. I'll be happy. Premiership final.
Good evening, everybody. That's good, I think. Everybody can hear me. Just at the back, can you raise your hands if you can hear me okay? Fantastic, that's great. Good evening, welcome to King's Home, and welcome to the latest Gloucester Rugby Fans Forum. We were last here at the end of August, just prior to the start of the current season, and wow, it seems like a lot of water has flown under the bridge since then, hasn't it? There's been an awful lot going on. Before we get into the forum itself, could I just draw your attention to the gentleman at the back? That's the Gloucester Rugby Heritage Committee at the back there. So you've got Matt King, who's waving at us at the moment, and those gents are here tonight because obviously they have 2 books out at the moment. Fantastic books, one about King's Home and one about representative matches here at King's Home, the latter of which was only launched just before Christmas. So if you'd like to pop and see them on the way out, they'd be very glad to talk to you about that and hopefully sell a few copies as well. For those of you who've been here before, we're going to follow exactly the same format as we have done before. We've got our top table here. I'm just looking to my right to check with our IT guys here. Are we streaming live? Are we? Yes, we're live on the internet, so there are people following us via the internet right now. If you are following, by all means, tweet us a question using the hashtag GlossFansForum, and we'll try and get through those. But the priority, of course, is going to be with you ladies and gentlemen here this evening. You're here, you've made the effort to come and see our guests here on the top table, so therefore we'll do our very best to give priority to the questions that you put to us. We've got 2 microphone runners. We got 1 microphone runner. One's fallen by the wayside, obviously in addition to the injury list that I don't know about. There's Helen who's there with the microphone, so when we do come to the floor for questions, just raise your hand and we'll try and get Helen to you as quickly as possible. So without further ado, to my left, first of all, head coach Johan Ackerman. You met him for the first time at the forum back in August. He's here, well, he's come back, which is a good sign. Next to him we have our owner and chairman, Martin St Quinton. Then we have our CEO, Stephen Vaughan, and definitely last but not least, our director of rugby, David Humphreys. So we're going to crack on probably now for about an hour and a half, probably about 8:30. We're not going to take a break, so if you do need to refill your glasses, Nick and his staff are over there ready to serve. You know, just slide out the back and get yourself a drink, top yourself up. But we'll try and just steam through, get through as many questions as we possibly can, because I know that there are probably going to be plenty coming forward. So the awkward moment where I look at you all and say, who would like to ask the first question of the evening? Great, we've got one. It's been the first time for a while. So Helen's coming with a microphone.
Right. First of all, thank you very much for the free drink. Cheers. Johan, thank you very much for bringing us back a wonderful team that we've been missing for a few seasons. You've done a wonderful job. Thank you. And now the thank yous stop. And I think you must know what I'm going to say, because I sit in the main stand. I pay nearly £400 a year for my season ticket. I've been coming to this club now for 50 years, nearly 50 years. Oh, I was a small child, obviously. And what do I come to watch now? Not a wonderful rugby match, the Saracens game, it was fantastic. I have to watch some fatuous bimbo wiggling around in a dress that she's trying to sell me from some big screen stuck on the roof of the shed. Straight in my eye line. All right, you're making a lot of money out of this. I can see by your smile, Mr. St. Quentin. You're making a lot of money out of it. I can understand why you're having this, but why do we have to have it while the game is on? Why can it not be just pre, post and half time? Why can we not concentrate on the game in hand that Johan is bringing to us and we've been wanting for seasons? And also what I'll ask, if you're going to keep it there, is when are you going to put one on ours so that it signs in the face of the shed and see what they've got to say about it? And I've been emailing Gloucester Rugby now since the very first game it was put up. And countless. And in the end, I got a very rude, very abrupt email in reply. And it was so rude, I almost felt like going out buying a stepladder so that I always had a naughty step to sit on every time I saw it. And it's just unacceptable. And I want you, please, now, in front of everybody, to say that at least while the game is on, this will not be showing adverts. I do not want to buy a dress. I don't want to buy a house. I want to see Gloucester Rugby playing a fantastic game that Johan has brought to us.
Well, Steve, I think the honeymoon is over this evening.
Was there a honeymoon?
It was very brief.
Was it?
But I think, Steve, you're probably best positioned to.
I think this one's for Johan.
Can I just, before do you want the drink back?
I think you need another. Okay, thanks for your for the first question of the evening. So, to answer your question as to why we might do things like this, and to talk specifically about that, we have a deal with a company that we deal with on advertising and the screens that we've got either side, and currently we're actually trying to get planning for a screen twice the size of that, where it is at the moment, which we're currently going through planning for. At the moment, because we can't get full planning, we have to run something through it during the game. We can't run a game feed through it, which will eventually happen. So what's going to happen, just to allay your fears, is that the same coverage that goes on the other two screens, which is the match score and just the adverts that run as normal. That's the main objective for all of us. But until then, there's a little bit of suck it and see, and we have to use the screen for something whilst the match is going without running the match feed through it. You probably won't have noticed, but the amount of advertising has gone down dramatically on it. We've had the score on it, we've had various things on it, but it turned off for the other night. So we did take some early feedback on that there was just probably too much advertising on it, but it is there for a purpose, and the end goal is to get effectively a jumbo screen which shows the match the whole way through. It's not to just show advertising all the way through. So I do apologise for whoever sent you an abrupt email. That isn't certainly not what we're about, and apologise for that. But and I appreciate, without you knowing the answer, you're thinking, hang about, what is this, just some kind of sales pitch? It's not. However, we can't make apologies for trying to be commercial and advertise, because that's how to try and run the business. But it isn't that type of venture. It is to have a much bigger screen which will run the match feed through. Hopefully by the start of next season we'll have 3 screens then which will all show the match the whole way through, and it won't be advertising. Okay, thanks.
Okay, mind at rest slightly, yes. Okay. Do we have another question from the wall? Helen, there's a gentleman there just in the middle of the walkway.
Thank you. Follow on from the question of the lady, which I totally agree with her. So we've been there. On Friday night I came to watch the match, not a disco. In the Abbey Lounge, you could not even speak to the person sat here. The music was so loud. I made a complaint, asked them to turn it down. Was it turned down? No. And loads of people around me were complaining. Is it necessary to have loud music in the Abbey Lounge or wherever it may be?
I think again. Evening, Brian. Look, it's a difficult one, is this, because for everybody that likes a bit of music and likes a bit of atmosphere generating, you'll get somebody that doesn't like it. We obviously have stewards and we have people that are around the stadium who would decide if they thought it was excessive versus what would normally be in the stadium, that if there was an issue they would do something about it. What I can't apologise for is trying to create some atmosphere around the stadium before a game. We appreciate that everybody's got a different idea of what that's like, and we have to try and work towards the masses and the majority of people that are in here. We have a report that comes through after every game which pulls out incidents from matches. If somebody's been obnoxious in a stand or something's happened or anything else, which always gets highlighted back to the management team. And I haven't had anything yet from anyone in the operations team saying that they've had complaints from people about excessive music. So if that's the case in the Abbey Lounge, then we've got a game here on Friday night, so we'll gauge it personally. But you know, it's very difficult, Brian. Some people want nothing on at all. Some people want something. Some people don't like the choice of music. Some people like Motown. Some people like jazz. It is quite difficult to get it for everybody. We try to cater for the masses, and we have to make a decision at some stage what's right for 90% of people. So I apologise if it was a bit loud for your particular taste on Friday. Okay. Again, I didn't hear that feedback, but on Friday night we'll do exactly the same, and we'll see what the situation is. And as I say, generally things get back to me very quickly if there are issues. Nothing's got back to me. I'll ask Mike and Sean and the guys to gauge it on Friday. If it's to be excessive, we'll do something about it. I guarantee you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Steve. When we announced this forum at the beginning of last week, we actually invited questions via email, and this is one of the questions that came in from Simon Jones. So, Simon, hope you're here or hope you're listening. It's probably a question that falls somewhere between yourself, Steve, and Martin, probably. And it's, is there a reason why the salary cap, open inverted commas, discrepancies, close inverted commas, are not reported in the press anymore? Has it been brushed under the carpet? And has the episode created more transparency and improved trust between clubs? That's a question from Simon Jones.
Just on the interest of introducing a new voice, let me take that one. It's a good question. The salary cap. There's a whole new salary cap structure in place with a new salary cap manager and a team of people underneath him. And I think the general consensus is amongst all the clubs is that the new salary cap monitoring and accountability is far superior to anything we've had in the past. So I think there's a great deal of trust in the current system. Which is the reason why you won't see much comment in the press, because I think the press generally feel that the salary cap is being monitored carefully and is being adhered to. And the penalties, if you get caught for breaking it now, are very, very strict indeed. So there's enormous fines to any club who is found to be breaking the salary cap, and huge points deductions. So I think it'd be pretty difficult for a club to be breaking the salary cap now, because if they get found out, they're going to be in deep trouble.
Okay, thanks, Martin. I'm going to go to a question from Twitter now. Got Andrew Hull, who tweeted us about 6 hours ago. I think probably one for yourself, Johan. It's the question is: it's great that our players always walk around and applaud the fans after every game, home and away. Could they sometimes come around to see the kids in other areas than the Mira stand on the way around? It'd be very well received. I know, Johan, you're very conscious of the bond between players and supporters.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for making me feel welcome the last few months, and for all the support coming to all the games. It's just brilliant, and the players can't do without you guys, and we know that. Just to come back to that question, Duncan, I think it's important for us to stay in touch with our fans, and we'll make a point on that. Children are obviously dear to my heart in the fact that that's our future. We want them to love this club and to wear the Gloucester shirts and to come to the games, and then obviously have their heroes here to wear the shirt. So if we can, we'll make sure that we allocate a few minutes. Obviously there's we want to get the guys recovered well after matches, and we want them to do the media, etc. But a few minutes, even if we allocate just a few players to go to certain areas, if we can call it the kids' corner or whatever, then we can do it for that.
That's great. And that's really good to hear. And I know that there are always lots of kids around by the tunnel who always stick around and ask for the programmes to be signed and shirts to be signed. So I think a continuation of that would be much appreciated by everybody. Do we have another question from the floor?
Hello, question for David. Great news today on the re-signing of Ollie and Freddie. Do we have any new recruitments in the pipeline? Thank you.
The number one question there, haven't you? I think everybody wanted to ask that one.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Look, this is a stage of the season. It's probably a very different year to what we usually have in terms of recruitment, in that often by this stage of the year we know exactly where we are, who's leaving, who's coming in. I think why this year has been different, and we probably touched on it when we met in August, because we have a new coach, because Johan's here, because he's just getting to know the playing squad. It's taken some time to understand the players that we see as being part of the longer term plan, players who can adapt to the way that we're now trying to play, and because of that it's just taken slightly longer than usual. But we do know at this stage now who we want to keep. We know which players are leaving. Those players have been informed that they are going to be moving on, and we're now at a stage where we're looking to see who we can bring in to strengthen the squad for next year. But I can assure you, you'll not be disappointed.
So I think the message there is trust us. Watch this space, definitely. Do we have another question from the floor? Helen's on her way.
I don't want to add too much to Stephen's woes, but like the lady in front, I've been a supporter 50 years, and I pay 499 quid. So is it dearer for men than women? But there we go for my gold ticket. But the main reason I buy my ticket is the belief that when Gloucester get to a match I really want to watch, I will get a ticket to go there, even if I've got to get up before breakfast and come down here and queue. So I was somewhat taken aback last year when I got my wife and my flight tickets to La Rochelle. I got the hotel booked. I came down and was told we're not having any. At the last moment, there was a change of decision, gratefully, and I got my tickets at 5 to 5 the night before I went. Now, I didn't go to Arjon, but I'm told that tickets weren't available for Arjon, but I can understand there wouldn't have been a problem getting tickets out there, as it turned out. But what I am looking for is a commitment that in future, season ticket holders, you will look after us, because I don't fancy trying off a mobile phone, trying to book tickets through the internet in French away, when you're far more able to do that and got a lot more clout, and I've got a better chance of getting a ticket. Thank you.
Okay, well, firstly, that's completely out of our hands when it's an away trip. I know speaking to the ticket office manager at the time, but let me just pull back a second here. It's completely within our interests to get you guys as many tickets as we can, members or not members. You know, we don't discriminate. Our members get a much better deal with the club for many reasons, whether it be the additions, whether it be the prices, whether it be the savings, etc., etc. So we know that and we get that and we appreciate that, and memberships are going incredibly well for next year off the back of the benefits and of course how we're playing this season, which is fantastic. However, when it comes to another ground, so take La Rochelle for example, due to the regulations that you're allowed to work in with the PCR in Europe, up until a certain point they didn't want to give us any tickets. They said, no, we don't have to give you any tickets. We're going to get a full house. If your supporters want to book tickets, they book tickets, despite the best efforts of the ticket office and everybody else, because do you not think that they don't get hundreds of people phoning them every day saying, can you get tickets, can you get tickets? It's exactly what we want to do. Most clubs have no issues with allocations, and there's almost a gentleman's agreement really around that. But in the case of La Rochelle, unfortunately, it's not our club. We can ask them. I spoke to the president at La Rochelle myself, and he said, oh, you know, it's just one of those things, and I'm sure they'll be able to get here and get in. But a typical French kind of shoulder shrug approach. But you know, we can't be held responsible when the people that we're dealing with, a third party, just were being completely inflexible to us, and we absolutely appreciate the support. It was an amazing trip, you know, fantastic part of France, and you know, fantastic performance as well, and you know, there's a lot of Gloucester supporters there who had a fantastic time. But you know, it's completely within our interest to make it as easy for you guys at every level, you know, to get tickets. But if they won't give us tickets, there isn't a lot we can do, I'm afraid. Yeah, I do believe that's generally the case. I mean, in 5 years, I've never once had a conversation with anybody saying that hasn't been the case. And, you know, sometimes in Europe especially, we'll get them quite late, or we'll be chasing and suddenly we'll have them. And it's not always very slick dealing with some of our counterparts in Italy or France. I mean, if anybody came to Treviso the other year, they saw the absolute classic dictionary phrase of not being slick, but we had a fantastic weekend, and sometimes that's the way. But I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, there's nobody here at Kingsholm that doesn't want to get tickets to our members or non-members as quick as possible. We've got people like Helen and Mike and Dave, and they're extremely customer focused, and the reality is they know, because they're getting told all of the time, and all they're doing on your behalf is chasing because it makes their life a misery, to be quite frank. They'd want everything the next day. So if there's anything around more clarity, then we're happy to do it. But as I say, in 5 years I've never. But we can only rely on the information that we receive, obviously, and you know, and I think that's the beauty about rugby as well. If you are ever in doubt because we're not getting information, there's no segregation. Just get your tickets booked. It's probably the safest thing to do.
And where a club does actually communicate our allocation in advance, what Dave, the ticket office manager, will ask us to do on the website is actually put up a story saying how many we've got, what price they are, what date they go on sale. They're available to club members first, and we have them available until a certain time, at which point any unsold get returned. Now, unfortunately, as Steve says, it doesn't happen with every single club we play, but when the other club is playing ball, we'll communicate that as best we possibly can to make sure you get your tickets. Okay, Helen, I think Ken had a question here. Ken, if you put your hand up again so Helen can find you. Oh, there we
go. Question for Johan. How difficult has it been to adapt your coaching from the Southern Hemisphere to the Northern Hemisphere?
Yeah, it was quite difficult. Obviously, time was the one thing that was against me, as I missed the pre-season. So it started, quite hectic and straight into it, and therefore you couldn't do the foundation that you wanted to build on. Credit to the players, obviously once I arrived, they really tried to adapt as quickly as possible, and we had to set, the culture that we wanted and the values, etc. And also then, started to change where we felt we needed to change. And then it's like any process and any organization, it's to give and take, and also to learn about the abilities in your squad. And, even the coaches around me, we had to really start knowing each other. So that probably is the biggest change. And then obviously as the season progressed, the weather started to change, and that always sometimes, can influence the style and the play that you wanted to do. But I think going forward, hopefully some areas we really progressed faster than my expectation, and then other areas it's a bit frustrating at the moment. We don't get there, and we don't get the balance right, and we're far off of where we need to go. And therefore, for now, and I know no supporter want to hear, it's going to take time, but the reality is, it's still going to get time. If we want to compete against the best, it's going to take time, and obviously the thing that's most concerning for me now, and we'll obviously keep on addressing it, is the last few weeks, the inconsistency. I don't like that, and we need to change that. So, but just to come back, I don't think it's more physical or less physical. I think the physicality in both sides are similar. Obviously, set piece and those things is quite a big factor this time of the year. And then obviously the weather is the biggest change. And then just off the field, the cultures that similar to in South Africa, although there's black and white and brown players. Well, once they into the rugby market, and the culture is quite similar to those who play rugby. And I think, obviously you've got to do with different nationalities, people from New Zealand, Scotland, Wales, England, etc. And therefore the thinking is a bit different. So we still got a way to go to really become the united side. That's my aim. I know we're all about the results, and we're all about lifting trophies, but I feel we can't achieve that if we're not a place where we care for each other, where we're united, and where we play for the badge and just love what we're doing, and therefore to get that feeling into everybody is still a way for us to go, and probably that's where the pre-season could have helped. We're a great bunch of guys, and the guys enjoy each other. I think to really become to know each other, we have to spend more time together. So I think that's the big challenge for us as a group, to really become one off the field as well. And obviously up for us as management, we need to make that effort to make sure we create that time together. I think that's the biggest change at the moment. I don't know if my English improved. Obviously I was concerned about that over the last few months, and if my message do come over. But the one thing the players did is they worked extremely hard, and you can't do without that. So that's great. And then obviously the level of player comparing back to South Africa where we started is a bit different. Some of the guys has played international rugby. We must just get that hunger and desire back, to play at that level.
Okay, thank you, Johan. I'm going to take another email question now. It's from Andy Dowson, and it's an infrastructure question. So, Steve, again yourself, I'm afraid. Are the turnstile ticket scanners going to be upgraded? It's great that the club is looking at cost-saving ideas like print your own tickets, print at home, but the scanners struggle to read those at the pre-season games, and friends of mine were still having issues with them at the recent Sale match.
So print at home is probably fairly Well, it's fairly new to us, but it's used up and down the country now. And the reality is that, you know, if it does rain or if you've got a printer at home which isn't brilliant, it's a barcode system. So it will be good for 90% of people, and it won't work sometimes. I think the key is where they don't work at the moment is making sure that we've got the right process in place to ensure it's a nice, you know, slick process, you know, and, you know, so somebody can show us something to prove it's them, and then they can go into the stadium rather than being sent back to the ticket office, which I know has happened in the past. So the next step in terms of technology there is doing something with the card where you've got your kind of chip and pin type technology to get you through. It's not on the cards at the moment. As I say, you know, it's interesting how ticket purchasing is going now, because you know, when I first came to the club, I think literally everybody phoned up or came to the ticket office, and one or two people inquired in other ways. But 3/4 of all of our tickets now are getting booked online, if not more, for most games. So to have kind of, you know, half a dozen issues per game is not unheard of with anyone that uses print at home technology. So I think it's a much better platform than what we used to have previously. You know, when the right time comes, I think we'll upgrade again. But at the moment, I think it's manageable as long as we've got the stewards doing their jobs on the turnstile.
Thanks, Steve. Do we have another question from the floor? Yes, we do here. While Helen's making her up, lads, we've had a couple of mentions online saying that the feed's a bit choppy. Just to let anybody know who is watching online, it is being recorded, so it will be available to watch in its entirety on YouTube once the forum is over. Okay, and your question, please.
As we all know, we've just signed a certain player from a certain club not too far away. In light of the Welsh Rugby Union saying that anybody who wants to play for Wales got to live in Wales, there is a danger that we could be losing Owen Williams. We already know Ross is going. Wouldn't that money that we spent on Mr. Banahan been better spent on finding a quality number 10?
I'll try and answer that in a roundabout way. Over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, there has been, thanks to Martin and Steve, huge investment in our academy, getting the structure set up, and then getting the right people in place to make sure that structure brings through players who will go on to play out here. I think that's reflected a little bit in the fact that we have 5 players who've been in the wider under-20s training squad with England this year. But it's not just at number 10. Our academy is about producing the best players that we can from 1 to 15 and give us the depth of squad that we need, that we know we need to really compete. When you talk about individuals, it's very easy to look at individual recruitment and question why that is. One of the jobs that we do here, we sit down with, we've got to have 40 odd players. We're looking at the balance of our squad. We know we have strengths and weaknesses in certain areas, and part of recruitment is trying to strengthen the areas that you think will have the biggest impact on the team and allow us to continue to win out there. And we believe that, again, the recruitment that we have going, which everybody sees, is very important, but I can assure you that below that there's even more work going on to make sure the next generation of players that go on to represent Gloucester and hopefully back seeing Gloucester representation, as Martin has often said, in the England squad.
Do we go knocking on players' doors, or are they knocking on ours?
At what level?
Well, like when we're signing, I mean, obviously, do we go looking for a particular player and see if he wants to come to us? Or are there players actually knocking on our door saying, I want to come and play for you?
I think the process is very different really for every player. So because recently, a few years ago, in terms of the RFU and the PRL are very conscious of making sure that clubs can't poach players at academy level. So below the age of 20, players who are under contract to us or under contract to any other club are protected unless you go and pay a transfer fee. So that's why there's a huge interest in making sure that we get our players and give them game time and enough opportunities to develop into the players that we want them to be. At the top level of recruitment, look, again, honestly, every case is different. We sit down and we more than say we want a specific player, we will sit down and say these are the attributes or the characteristics of a player that we need to strengthen our team. We then, with agents sending names in all the time, you know, a few years ago the recruitment process was a small window where players became available. Now their agents sending players through a year before they're out of contract, 18 months before they're out of contract. So that allows you plenty of time to try and plan and populate your squad as you can. And then it's a case of us meeting them. Johan and I will go and talk to them, talk about the club, talk about the ambition we have here, what we're trying to do. So I don't think it's a case now of players ever coming knocking on your door, but it's agents come and say players would love to come and join you, and there's no question this year, because of the impact that Johan's had, because of the way we're playing, because of the positive vibes that are coming out of the club, there are lots of players who are interested in joining Gloucester.
Just to back up what David's saying there about the youth group players, our under-18s played London Irish on Saturday, David, and I think that was their 4th win in a row in the under-18s league, so they're acquitting themselves particularly well at that level, so the pipeline at that particular stage looks very, very strong indeed. Martin, question for yourself. We're actually coming up, I think, is it the 2nd anniversary of you having taken over the club in February? How happy are you, almost 2 years in, with the direction of the club, how it's performing, at all levels, both on and off the field?
I'm very happy. We're 4th in the league. We're in the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup. We'd prefer to be at home than away, but if we can win away in Galway, we'll get a home semi-final. And as David's just adhered to, there's a lot of very high calibre players who want to come and join this club. I think we've got a very strong coaching group led by big man here, and behind the scenes things are also very strong. Financially we're in a good place. Season ticket sales are ahead of where they've ever been in for as long as I can remember. So yeah, overall I'm very, very happy.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. Johan, I've got a question from Adam B212 on Twitter, who says, we've seen a lot of rotation in the team so far this season, and particularly in recent weeks. What are the reasons behind this? And is there a possibility that this could introduce some inconsistencies?
Well, I've challenged the squad, just to answer Adam, I've challenged the squad that I want a squad that I've got the utmost trust that every player will have the knowledge and the physical level to compete any day when we need him. And therefore, obviously, when you got 2 players who's quite pushing each other for a starting position, or 3 players even, to me, to keep the hunger, the desire, the energy, it's all about game management. I can't see one player play, 30-odd games on his own. And the biggest thing for us is for our squad and our team to believe it, and to trust each other and to trust the system, and I'm trust we're getting there, because if the player can understand his role in the system, then he'll be well prepared and he will be well committed to present this the side, and that moment with the utmost respect, and also to understand that if I do rotate, that there's a bigger picture. I think there's always fears of inconsistency, but to me, a team is about more than that 15. To me, you can play for the whole season with one player, and what do you do if you don't have that player in a semi-final, or maybe in a call it a must-win game to qualify or whatever? And then suddenly that other player feels now he's good enough to get an opportunity, but he wasn't good enough during the season. And I want players to know that I take my selection serious. I play with players' careers, with livelihoods, with families. So nothing is just a thumbs up, and I just select and I like you or I don't like you or whatever. So I take it seriously, and sometimes you look at the opposition and you see the strengths of that opposition or the weaknesses, and it's maybe not big margins, it's small margins that player can add to the team, and therefore you select a player. So sometimes that rotation is planned by the way you want to play, or even sometimes defend, and also some players are unfortunately stronger than other players in certain areas. It's not to say the other player is a bad player. He's going to get his opportunity either the following week or the week after that. You look at our hooker situation, with James joining us, with Richard, with Mots, all 3 international hookers. So if I only play with 2, you know, think how tired that guy will be by round 10, 11, 12 of just training but never get an opportunity to play. So it's just to keep everybody on their toes and refreshed and to manage them game time, you know, medically as well. You know, I think it will be great if we can spread the game load over that period. And then lastly, the reason why the rotation is for me to make the best decisions I can going forward. You know, where's the strength of this player group and where not, you know, and you can only know that if you give the player a fair opportunity on the field to show what he can do, and then I can sit down and make decisions going forward. So it was like I said, when we started, it was quite hit and run, and a lot of things had to be dealt with. I didn't have the opportunity to work with players for 4, 5, 6 weeks in the preseason to see what each player's really strengths are, and then obviously it's going to differ in season when you really see them under pressure in tough games. It worked for me in the past. I still believe it can work. You know, you look at the locks, you look at Ed, at Tom, Sav, at Thrashy, and now at Marihanu. All four again. You know, 3 of them have played internationally. I think Sav can play there, and if you play 2 and 1 on the bench, somewhere you must give the other guy. He's just working so hard, and I have to trust him. And then the guy who's not playing must trust the system that we're gonna, you know, got one goal, and that is to be up against the best and make sure you prepare well. So, you know, I've always said from the day one when I met the players, you know, make sure you don't sit in a meeting and think I'm second or I'm third in the line. If you get selected, make sure you're ready to play just as good as the guy you thought was ahead of you. So don't rank yourself, put yourself, and you get that opportunity every week in the training. Sometimes players can actually train them into the starting lineup. Depends what I see, what energy do they bring, how do they train. So, you know, like I said earlier, selection, even if you select a 23, that's, you know, a thing I just don't like about coaching is to tell a player, sorry, you're not in, you know, because we're all competitive and players don't like not to play, you know. So even though it's a rotation, they sometimes still look, why do I don't play? So it's not easy for any player, but you know, as a squad, we have to build confidence in everybody, and therefore I still believe it. But the last thing I wanted to say is, come to the end of this Anglo-Welsh games, we're obviously into the business side of things. Then the players, the consistency will come. Similar to my coaching history back home, is I rotate till up a certain point, and then, you know, obviously I go and select the best 23 available going into to start building that momentum, and then it's obviously in the players' hands.
And of course, it's not just the 23 prepare for any one game. We had an example earlier this season where Ed Slater pulled out in the warm-up. We had to grab Jake Pelledri from the crowd almost, didn't we? Jake came in, hasn't looked back since, has he?
Yeah, I know exactly. You know, that can happen. You know, physically a minute before kickoff, we had to phone Jake. Luckily, he didn't have a beer in the stand, or maybe he had. That's why he was so good. So that's maybe the recipe then. But you know. And he grabbed that opportunity, you know. And if you look at Freddie, Jake, Lutz, everybody, you know, we played without Ross and Ben for a lot of the season, and they grabbed the opportunity, and it's just because, you know, the effort that they've put in. So we want every young player to know that, you know, if I work hard, I can achieve a lot. And then we want the senior players to know, you know, I have to set the example and work hard. And in both groups, there must be a willingness to teach and to learn and to respect when the other guy wears the jersey, I must train well so that he can prepare well for the coming weekend.
That's great. That's a great answer, right, Johan. Do we have another question from the floor? There we go.
Hello. A question for Martin, actually. Martin, I mean, given where the club is now from where it was sort of this time, sort of last summer, are you actually quite pleased that the Altrad deal didn't go through?
Yes, I am. The Altrad deal would have definitely brought some benefits to the club in the short term, but I grew increasingly uncomfortable with the way the negotiations were going with Moed Altrad. And by the time the deal was voted out by the PRL, I felt that maybe that was the right decision, in all honesty. And subsequent to that, I've been increasingly happy that the deal didn't happen. Yeah.
People ought to say thank you as well for your commitment to the club.
I have a question online for Steve. It's been announced that obviously we're getting a new playing surface for the forthcoming season, but at the moment it's all quiet on concerts. Will concerts happen, and how will that work in terms of staging those and then getting the pitch in time?
Yeah, absolutely, concerts will happen. Concerts are a part of the annual piece now. To pay for these wonderful players that David's bringing in, and everything else, we certainly can't go against that. But no, yeah, absolutely. So the pitch, the pitch will be a hybrid surface, but it will be treated like grass. It will look like grass. It will look like grass. It will just have a lot more benefits, be more robust. It will be easy to treat, and can we use it more? So, I've spoken to Johan and David last week when we were in France about maybe training more at the stadium as well, and want to do more at the stadium with the pitch in terms of from a community perspective, getting some local teams playing on here maybe before our matches or after our matches. Certainly getting the Gloucester Hartpury women's team playing here more. We just physically can't do it at the moment. If anybody saw the Wasps game at the weekend, that's Coventry playing on it one week, Wasps the next. You can't do it in the modern day. So yes, concerts will absolutely happen. I'm confident that we're going to have at least one, if not more, this year. And the plan is that once we've played the Bath game on the 5th of May, I think it is. We've got a combination cup game here. We've got some corporate days out and things on the pitch. They're using it, and then we're going to start kind of ripping up 100 tons of grass and soil, doing a few weeks' worth of work on it, and then having our concerts to be covered then. But there's so much work that can be done on it in that period of time, and then after the concerts are finished, we then start from the irrigation and from the drainage and all of the rest of it. We start to go into the seeding piece, putting the actual hybrid mat down, and it's 5%. So 5% of it is a synthetic plastic, effectively, which the grass root wraps around, and it gives it a real solid surface and a nice cambers going on it. So yeah, it should be fantastic. But definitely still doing concerts, and hopefully we'll be able to do more things on it. But the decision to go with a hybrid surface was very much around the playing group. Rather than a financial decision, because if it was a commercial decision, there's no brainer. A 3G pitch, a plastic pitch, effectively works every time. You can rent it out, you can play in it, you can do what you want with it. But we just didn't feel it was right for this club and for this group of players. And but we'll do what we can with this new pitch. Oh God! I hope so.
Steve, you touched very briefly there up on the Gloucester Hartpury women's side, and I got a few murmurs of approval. As CEO of the organisation, which obviously incorporates the women's side, how pleased are you with their performance in this first season of the Tyrrell's Premier 15s? And that didn't come from Susie, I hasten to add.
Yeah, they're doing fantastically well, and the sport's growing, and we've had a number of our girls that have just been called up into the EPS. Is it 4 or 5? 4 of our girls have been called up into the EPS squad, which is fantastic. In fact, one of the girls, Bianca Blackburn, the scrum half, works for us in the community department, and it's great. I mean, we have a great relationship. Susie Appleby that runs it really well, and we're building at the moment. And in our first year, with the big, the kind of big clubs, as it were, the traditional clubs, the girls are really hanging themselves together well. So want to get them down here more. I think we're having them play here after the Newcastle game. Is that right, Helen?
I'm not sure.
Okay, there you go. Definitely here after one of the games this year. I'm pretty sure it's Newcastle, if not it's Quins. But so the girls are going to be playing here as well, and hopefully we can make it more of a fixture next year with the new pitch, and more local clubs and more kids and all the rest of it as well. And we're a community club, and we want to use the pitch a bit more, and clearly we can't at the moment.
And the last word on the pitch, Chris Lampai on Twitter has just said, when the pitch is ripped up, will there be a chance for supporters to buy a square of it?
Interesting. If Chris Lampai wants to buy a piece of the pitch, he's more than welcome. We can do that. We did have a quite a amusing conversation today about it. Actually, you know, I thought I was being quite ingenious the other day. We were talking about this, and we said, actually, why don't we sell like certain parts and label them? You know, so where James Hook kicked that 55-metre penalty against Saracens to win the game, or you know, where this and that happened. And somebody pointed out to me it was 3 seasons ago. We've reseeded it 3 times since. So it reminded me of that famous sketch in Only Fools and Horses where Trigger talks about his broom. And, he said, I've had this 25 years or something. He said, 4 new handles and 3 new heads. Yeah, look, you've
in contract for, and when it's up, can we have a change, please? We want some decent beer, because I've cut down my drinking over the last season.
I assume that's for me. I beg to differ, but that's fine. I think our beer and drinks in general within Kingsholm, I believe, and most people believe that I've spoken to, a huge upgrade year on year. Without going into detail, we now have cask ales, we have real ales, we have 2 IPAs, we have 2 or 3 different lagers, Guinness, Stowford Press, Prosecco, you name it, we have it here. Unfortunately, I can't. Everybody's palate's different. If you don't like Green King IPA, maybe you preferred Worthington's last year, but I can tell you by the sales of Worthington's versus this year, I think we're selling 4-fold the amount of ale than we sold last year. So again, we can't have 15 different beers, and it just wouldn't be practical. And in terms of the length of the deal, it's a long-term deal. I can't really go into commercial information. It's a bit sensitive. You know, in this type of forum, but I apologise if you don't like it. Maybe we can, you know, find you something you do like. There's plenty of choice up there, but I can only go off what the commercials are telling me, and we've never sold more ale than we have this year.
Okay, we have another question coming straight up.
It's one for Johan on the playing side again. Johan, what's the injury situation at the moment? Because Rapava Ruskin, I'm just itching to see him play a full game.
Yeah, no, obviously Val, it was a loss for us because, you know, he's got a lot of potential. Got unfortunately injured in a training, but he's on his way back. He's just started to run a little bit, but he's a big boy, so he's a bit heavy on that ankles. So he's still I would say about a month, you know, so we don't want to put pressure on him, but also because for the part that we're going in, we can't want to play a back, you know, rather a week too long than too soon. But he's about probably, if I would guess, about a month away. Let's say end of February to be certain. But you know, obviously then he needs to be ready to play at quite a high pace, and that's the conditioning side we still have to get up. And then other than that, you know, we had a few niggles like Paddy McAllister and Charlie Sharples, but Charlie is back this week and Paddy is back this week. So there's a few guys coming back, and from where we were a few months ago with like 21 players out injured, we're looking much better now that a lot of those players have returned. You know, yesterday the A side, a few guys returned. Gareth Evans has played his first game in a long time. Obviously, we know Ross has played for us now 2 games, so there's a few guys coming back, so it looks much better at the moment. A few of our academy guys that we believe got a lot of potential, Harry Randall, and those guys are still injured, but as you know, it looks much better than a few weeks and months ago.
Okay, David, question for you. I think you probably quite like this. It's a question about a young man we mentioned earlier on, Jake Pelledri. Obviously, was Bristol, then obviously made a move to Hartbury before he came to Gloucester in the summer. Who's going to take the credit for spotting that potential?
I don't think it's not about taking credit. I think we knew Jake, because like many of our supporters, we have a number of players who play for Hartbury week in, week out when they're not involved with us to get game time, and to give them an opportunity to be competitive in winning last year and then obviously in the championship this year. And as part of that, we watch the Hartbury game every weekend, And really right from the start of the season, Jake was a standout player. And I think we contracted him about this time last year, wasn't it? About this time last year, and I think we've only really tapped into the potential that's there. He benefited hugely from a big pre-season, but again with another pre-season under his belt, with the experience that he's going to have in international duty with Italy over the course with the season training camp this weekend, and then we'll see whether he's involved beyond that. He'll probably get some time and tour with them during the summer, and also the game time he's getting here. He's going to become a special player, and I think we're all excited by the potential that's there from what we've seen over the course of the last few weeks. Jake's contract was an academy contract this year, but then he automatically, the remainder of his contract is as a senior player. But he, again, someone we would hope to retain long term.
Okay, do we have a question from the floor? Thanks, Elliot. Gentleman there.
On Friday night, we saw in the first half Gloucester's defence push Pal back from our own 5 metre line to the halfway. In your assessment of the half season, Johan, would you say that's a positive sign of things to come? And what would be your assessment?
I don't think, obviously if you lose this, you can take too much positives out of it. But yeah, I mean, that was good defence. We just didn't keep it up for the whole 80, the tries that they score with. Just too easy and too soft. So obviously there's stuff that we need to look at. I'm very conscious of what I'm going to say because obviously it's nice to sit here and to say we top 4 and everybody is happy, but that can change so quickly because the thing is so bunched up the lock, and you lose 2 or 3 games and suddenly you dropped 8th, 9th, and it's just another season again. And I know there's a lot of potential in the squad, and therefore I don't want to get overexcited. I do believe we can stay where we are and compete against the top sides, not like we played the last few weeks. At the end, Sale Sharks, we defended right at the end to win games. So there's definitely a lot of positives. Obviously, I want us to play an attractive brand of rugby. I want us to score a lot of tries. I want us to run the ball and, enjoy it and put smiles on their faces, and so we need to up that, and get that skill better, and not just rely on the defensive efforts. So yes, I'm pleased the fact that we still got our own destiny in our own hands. We don't have to sit and hoping that guy lose and this guy lose. We must make sure we pitch up once the games or the Premiership starts again, and make sure we make use of the fact that we've got a lot of games still at home, and up back to our skill level. We're not there yet. Our breakdown is an area of concern. We need to fix that, and then obviously we lose the odd line out that we just switch off, and it's costly at the moment. On Friday there was opportunities to really finish them once we went up 7-3 or 7-6, and we just didn't use the opportunities we just didn't finish, and it's almost like we want to become the individual that's the hero of the evening and not stick as a team collective. And sometimes that's what pressure can do when you feel you need to perform, and it comes back to the point of the rotation as well. Players must understand, you rotate, you get the opportunity to play, but it's still a team effort. It's still about the team, and you can be man of the match, and it's not to say you're going to play next week. In my mind, if I still feel you need to rotate and to rest and give somebody else the opportunity, it's still going to happen. So there's a lot of growth for the team still, off and on the field. For us to really be competitive, and we just during games, our error rate is just too high. When we make a mistake, it's quite costly. Just to come back to your example, you say we defended well, but then look at the tries they scored. We didn't kick out our penalty, then they run and the fullback runs straight through, and then they go score. So how can we be so soft in that moment, but defend so good the other time? So if you ask me a few months back, do you want to be in the position you are now, or if you gave me that position, I would say, yes, that's great, being up there, and like I said, we can control that, you know. So yes, but you know, I don't want to be the. I always want to be positive, but the most important thing is you guys. You know, we have to play with that commitment and passion every time, and not chase the result, but chase our you know, our intensity, chase our care for each other, chase the fact that we've got the privilege to play, to wear the jersey, to represent ourselves, and then the results will look after itself. And I think that's where we probably let ourselves down in the last few weeks, especially against Northampton. You know, the game was there for the taking, and in 6 minutes we chucked it away, and that could have had a massive impact on the lock as well, you know. So yeah, so there's ups and downs, but I'll take it where we are now and just keep working hard.
Johan touched upon the Northampton game there, and I had a question through about referees, and obviously there was a last-minute penalty try there, and there was a lot of media debate online afterwards about whether it was a penalty try, whether Andy Simmons should have been yellow carded, etc. As a club, how do we get to feedback about the performance of officials, and how is that handled?
It's done very differently now. England have put in place a very strong process, which is run by Tony Spreadbury through the RFU. So the referees meet Monday and Tuesday after every weekend, and they review, as a group of referees, all the games that have been played at that weekend. And before that, we then have the chance to feed back to Tony Spreadbury any issues that we've had from that game. So gone are the days where the head coach can contact the referee directly and try and influence him. That's been taken out of the game completely. Like the Northampton game, like I probably will qualify my answer by saying that in the context of rugby match, every breakdown, every maul, there could be a decision given, but all you're asking is that the big decisions, they get them right. And we felt in that Northampton game we came out the wrong side of a couple of big decisions, and look, it's going to happen across the course of the year. The week before against Sale, we probably came out on the right side of a deliberate knock-on just down in front of us here. So it's hard to be critical of referees. It's sometimes very frustrating, but it's hard to be critical of them, and I do think the level and quality of referees in England are significantly better than some of the other competitions not far away.
Thanks, David. Does anybody else have a question online? We're into the final half hour, and on Twitter, Adam B212, who asked a question a few minutes ago, he's got about 10 questions here. We can literally just go through Adam's question for the rest of the time, but I'd like to give priority here if at all possible.
Thank you. Just thinking of all the commentary so far about rotation, squad management, player management, injuries. If it ever came to it, how would you prioritise between the league and the Challenge Cup? And I guess that's both a business and a rugby question.
We'll both of us, you go first, then I'll answer it. If we disagree.
No, I mean, obviously, you know, for me, both competitions is important, and probably because of the situation that we're in, we can. It's the two avenues for us to qualify for the European Cup. So if we win the one, we obviously qualify, and if we get in the top 6, so I know Premiership is the main priority. That's where we get bragging rights if you win Bath and etc. So, but you know, so that is important. But for me, you know, the Challenge Cup is still big enough, the quality of teams that you play, to respect that competition and to put your best side possible forward, and to obviously try and win silverware for the club. So the rotation is definitely, you know, I see it as similar. So I still will manage players, and obviously if we need to play, like on the weekend, I felt we played a very good side. It's up to that side to go out and do the business. So, yeah, for me at the moment, there's no difference. And especially, obviously, our vision to get back into the top flight of the European Cup, then you won't have the luxury anyhow to take anything for serious, because the teams is just too good. You can't rotate or rest players for that instance. So, yeah, so for me, you know, we made it very important.
You know, I would just add to that by saying that I think one of the things we've done very well this year, and has certainly worked well with the players, is it has literally been a week by week basis. Every game, it's about preparing for that game and then worrying about what's afterwards once that game's finished. Maybe in previous years we've looked too far across the season and set goals that, rightly or wrongly, I mean, my view maybe is slightly coloured by the fact that we obviously won the Challenge Cup 3 years ago, and we all felt that might be a springboard to success in the Premiership. It didn't quite happen the way we saw it. That's why this year, with where we've got ourselves to, the next 5 Premiership games will have a huge bearing on how the league's going to finish. And I think after that, the priority may or may not change. But I do think, and again, 2 or 3 of you have mentioned it tonight, and certainly people have questioned about our rotation policy. But I think the one thing that really forced Johann's hand early in the season, as he has said, we had up to 21 players injured throughout that big part of that first block of games. There weren't really selection issues, and then putting that in the context that we're trying to make a decision on players' futures, we had to look at Europe as an opportunity to play a lot of our squad players and the players who were coming back. So I think the competitions have worked very well together this year, but going into the next few run of games, our focus is very much preparing for Leicester.
Okay. Graham Spring, I'm sure you all know who he is. I'm sure you all certainly know his voice. He's going to be retiring at the end of the season as our PA announcer after 40 seasons doing the role. Steve, how are you going to replace him?
Yeah, I'm not doing it. Yeah, Spring has been phenomenal, hasn't he? And he's been the voice of the club for 40 years now. And you know, obviously we'll make sure he's spoilt rotten, and we'll make sure he's welcome at King's Own whenever he wants to come, and I'm sure that'll be every other week and the rest of it. And he comes to our away games as well with Mike and the Mitsubishi. He's an enormous supporter of the club, and he's a part of the fabric of the club actually. So he'll be sorely missed. Yeah, like all good people that you've got to replace, you have to go out and see who's out there and see who's interested in it and all the rest of it. And I'm sure we'll find someone. We'll try to be as as balanced with who we pick and make sure they've got, again, a good knowledge of the club and the rest of it. And, we'll find someone and we'll make sure that they fit in well. And, you'll never replace, the irreplaceable, as it were. And it doesn't mean that you can't bring somebody in that can still do a great job and have their own take on it to take us into a new era. But, Springy's going to be, sorely missed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. I think that might be a
I can bring him over
question.
if you want. Yeah.
Helen with a question down the front.
Right, shall I go again? So, PA systems. In fact, Graham at the front here will attest to this. But yeah, we are aware, and again, it's interesting really because I was walking past the shed on Friday for a chat with a few of my friends over there, and the music was on. I thought it was absolutely fine. Somebody said, "Oh, it's too loud." Somebody said, "Can you turn the music up?" And you actually can't win. But I think what I would agree on is that the PA system with regard. There you go. That's quite ironic, wasn't it? The PA system in terms of the speakers from a microphone perspective, it just doesn't work right in certain parts of the stadium. We've done an audit of all of the whole stadium actually with one local company, and like any good business, we're going to get 3 quotes, and then we're going to see what the priorities from there. It's come back and it's told us a number of things with regards to amplifiers and systems and speakers and all the rest of it, and it also came back and shouted quite loud and clearly at us that King's Home and its how it's been developed, and the shed is a shed. It's a corrugated metal roof with some concrete blocks and some metal pillars. It's not the Royal Albert Hall when it comes to acoustics. But we are aware it's high on the list. Is it going to get done this season? No, it's not. It's not going to get done this season, but it is definitely on the list. And in fact, just because Graham at the front here has been a solid voice behind this, I even showed him the email that I got back from one of the PA companies just to let him know I'm not pulling the wool. So we will get to it. It won't be this season, and hopefully the end of this season You know, we're going to be talking about hopefully a number of developments that we'd like to bring to the stadium with regards to you know, making the match day experience a more pleasurable place, and hopefully we can give you some information on that at the same time.
Steve, is that an appropriate time to answer a question that's come in online about the various bits of wiring and boxes that are appearing around the stands?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a lot of people asking me if there's lots of, you know, these kind of white circle boxes and look like we're going to get attacked from the day of the Triffids. What that is, all of those wires and pieces of equipment is, yeah, we're looking at introducing a fully cloud-enabled Wi-Fi system around the stadium for next season. The reason we haven't been shouting about it is, you know, these things, you know, you need to test them and test them and test them until you're comfortable to launch them. But the plan is that with one of our key partners, we're going to give all of our supporters an app. Once activated, that app will give you inside Kingsholm Stadium free Wi-Fi, and to launch that, there will be various things on there which you'll be able to use.
It's not like we're going to send you know, a young team out, and so for the likes of Ben Morgans and Charlie Sharples and Henry Trinders and those guys will play. You know, so because if you look, those were the guys who's returning from injury, etc. If we had a spreadsheet of minutes played, and you're not above a certain minutes, you're probably going to play both these games, but at least one of them, and then we'll sit down collectively as a management after Friday's game and assess where we are, how we feel about our own game, and then we'll make a decision with the Newcastle game, because obviously there's two theories going into that game. You can either pick your best side and see it as a rehearsal and a time to get everybody ready for the rest of the game, or you can prepare them quite hard on the training pitch and make sure that they finish on Friday and have a good weekend of recovery, because obviously the Newcastle game is away, so that's 6 hours on the bus there, play the game and 6 hours back, so influence your players' recovery over the weekend. So you're probably going to have a very limited training on Monday, where if you've got guys fresh on Monday, you can actually hit the ground running on Monday and really go prepare well. And then there's the theory, if they don't play, they can be not so sharp for the match, and maybe lack of match fitness, etc. And then if you play, you can sit Monday and you can say, you can lose quite an important player through injury, and you can say, why did we play our best side, you know? So we'll make that decision come after Friday and see where we are. Again, you know, we'll make it, and once we made it, we'll back it, and we'll live with the result. You know, we'll live with the decision, and we can't then say, yeah, we should have done that, we should have done this.
Okay, salary cap question. First part, how close are we to spending to the salary cap this season? Second part, will we be spending up to the salary cap next season? And how much of a challenge is it compiling a squad, maintaining it under the salary cap, bearing in mind that players' wages seem to be rising?
Well, I can answer the first two parts of the question. This season we're spending within about 10p of the salary cap. And next year we will absolutely be doing the same thing again. We'll be spending an absolute salary cap. David, the third part of the question is a bit more technical, so maybe you can do that.
Yeah, I think for me, even in the course of the last 4 years, the recruitment has become increasingly, I'm not sure, tough, competitive. Competitive would be a better word. All the clubs are ambitious. You look at the league table, you see how close clubs are together. There's very little between them. We're all scrapping in a pool for players. The salary cap hasn't gone up now for the last 2 years and won't go up for another couple of seasons. What that doesn't dampen down is the players' expectation around salary inflation. So what we're trying to do is work within the same numbers. Players expect a higher salary as they progress in their careers, as they always have done. So what you're finding across the course of the Premiership, and it'll be interesting to see again next season, is the squads, in terms of trying to retain your top quality players, to get them into that salary cap, the squads have to get smaller. So it comes back to the first question I was asked. That's why the academy, and that's why our group of young players coming through become more and more important year on year. So it is a challenge, but it's not a challenge that we're facing alone. Every club in the Premiership faces the same pressures, and looks for the same players.
That's great. Thanks, David. A question from the floor?
With growing reputations of people like Ben Vellicott, Jake Pledry, how much communication goes on between the coaches and the international coaches, Eddie Jones and...
Yeah, obviously Jake's selection is great for him because that was the back of performance, and I know that David had communication on Jake and when the camps is, etc. Personally, I haven't spoken to Connor or any coach to say, what's his strength and what's his weaknesses and where do he need to improve. I trust that's why they're going to have these camps, to obviously assess them personally and compare them with what they've got in the squad. About Ben, it's not Eddie, but his assistant coaches has phoned me about Benny and obviously what they see in Benny and what they want him to improve, and we obviously related that back to Timmy, who's working with the backs, and also to the skills he need to work on the request of them. And then if he does get the opportunity to work with the England squad in camps, etc., again, that's when they will make their own conclusions on where he fits in and what's his level of expectation. It's always difficult if you watch a player over TV, and even if you come and watch him in trainings, to really get a full assessment until you physically work with him and also compare him with what you've got in that week or in that 2 days. So definitely there was communication from the England side about Benny, but from Jake's side, I don't know if Connor has spoke to David, but not to me personally. But I trust that they've watched him and he actually played himself into the opportunity of getting invited to the camps. And then obviously it's up to the player. You're going to have that one shot to impress, and hopefully it will go well with him.
Okay, that's great. Questions come in from Jake Kennedy online. He said Matt Banahan is the first external signing announced for next season. Where do you see him playing? Do you see him as a wing, a centre, or as Jake says, a second row?
Well, that will be good if he can play there as well. Then, no, I mean obviously, it's great to have versatile players like Matt Banahan, because the reality is, like David said now, with the salary cap, etc., to be competitive, and you want to sign the best players that want to come to the club, etc. You're going to boil down that you're going to have injuries. That's part of the game we're in, and you have to have players that can play more than one position. It definitely helps. It obviously he must excel in one of them, and he must become a specialist and challenge. And that I will ask him, where do you want to challenge? Is it 12? Is it 13? Is it wing? Is it fullback? Where you want to challenge? And then he has to put down marker and challenge for that. But the reality is, your guys on the bench must cover more than one position, and also during the season, if you lose, players, then it's great to have players with that ability. So he's shown it in the past. He can play a lot of different positions, and that will just add to our squad depth, and especially with the numbers that's decreasing. And we haven't got we won't have 45 or what players. We're going to have less players, so it's going to be important for the backs to be able to play in different positions.
Thanks, Johan. Another question from the floor. Helen's on her way.
This is a question for Johan, really. Why did you come to Gloucester? Who approached you, and what made you want to come here to coach us?
I was obviously approached by Martin and David, and it was quite sudden, and it happened quite quickly, and obviously got the phone call, and then obviously they made the effort to come to South Africa and to meet with me, and I've met them, and they told me, obviously about the club and the passion what they've got for the club, and then obviously told me about this, the supporters, and I had time to go and think about the whole challenge and the club, and obviously did my own little search about the club and the history of the club, etc. And I looked at myself where I was as a coach, and also future going forward, and playing in Super Rugby for 10, 12 years, and coaching it last year for 4 or 5 years. And the reality was that I felt that the Lions is in a good place. We started from nowhere, and we eventually ended up with 12, 13 Springboks, and we played in the final. Our juniors started to win the Currie Cup trophies, and we've got a great management that can take over, etc. And obviously for me it was clear that this was a great challenge, and a great exciting growth for me as a coach, taking me out of my comfort zone, taking me out of what I know, in the fact that I can coach, trust them, their word, and to me that's what it's all about. It's people. We get only this opportunity in life once to make a difference where we go, and the fact that I felt it was not just me, it was a group of people behind the scenes who made a difference at the Lions. This was my opportunity to come here and to give my little bit of what I can add, but it's still going to take a group of people, effort. It's not about me, but just I could see the commitment from their side. I could feel the passion, and I looked, and I know the passion of Gloucester people for the club, and that's why I wanted to come, and that's why it's quite important for me that I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I always say, if I can walk away here and people can say I've treated them fairly and treated them well, then hopefully I will have succeeded. But I want to walk away here, hopefully making the people proud of their team.
Was it very difficult to persuade your family to come over with you? Because it's different for you, you're actually working, but obviously you've got to have the backing of your family, your wife and your children.
Yeah, for sure, it's still difficult for them up to today, I must be honest, we walk this walk by faith, and trust that God's got a plan for us, our life, and even though it's going to be challenging, that the end result will be fruitful. And for Ruan it was difficult to leave his friends, and because, like I said earlier, for me the team can't be just a team, they must be really friends, brothers, and he felt that, and the team embraced him regardless of the fact that he's my son. And it was difficult for him, but playing myself overseas and playing for a lot of different teams, it's quite easy. You come here and you know exactly, it's just another game. If I tackle well and I play well, people will accept me, and you carry on. My middle son was just out of school, so he got the opportunity to study at Hartbury, and he's happy, and he looked forward again to the excitement of seeing a different place, a new place. So, and he's one of those, you just give him something to do and he's happy, he goes with the flow. But the difficult one was my wife and my daughter. My daughter is 17 years old. At that stage, I think everybody here with teenage daughters will know that they've built friends and started to get boyfriend and all those things. And there's constantly something that reminds her. We got here and she just got over the transition, and then she went back home for the Christmas period, and she just got back, and she was just got through the sad side again. And then now last week the South African school started, and all her friends put on social media the first athletic meeting and the first this and the first that. So they battling a bit, and then my wife, as the ladies will appreciate, that with my playing career I was a lot away from home, sometimes even 6 months, and I was away because we based ourselves in Pretoria, and she built a network around her with friends and family that she can rely on, when there's trouble at home or the car breaks down or whatever. And she missed that, part a bit, but saying that we don't travel as much here, so that make up much more at home than normally, so that makes up, but it's still difficult for them, you know, to leave those people behind. Again, for myself, I do miss friends. You know, obviously I had strong relationship with my players and with the coaches back at the Lions, but you know, the players embraced me, that I'm grateful. Timmy and David and Johnny Bell and you know, just everybody, Alex Brown, everybody at the club, the people here, Duncan, everybody, you know, just embraced me, and I'm grateful for that. So suddenly you've got people you can talk to every day, and that makes it a bit easier. The transition is not like you're sitting at home and got nobody to talk to, etc. So yeah, so it's getting there. It's getting there. Hopefully, in a few months later or a year or two later, like I said, we'll see the positives of the reason why we came.
David, there's been a lot of talk about player signings. It didn't quite go under the radar before Christmas, but Tim Taylor and Johnny Bell signed a new contract. You know, how important is that for the group going forward, long term?
We believe that both of those coaches have the potential to be very good coaches, and one of the things when we met with Johan and talked about what we had here, we were very positive about the impact that they'd had on the playing group, but that they were young and they needed someone who would mentor them and through, and I think that we were delighted that they committed their futures alongside Johan to the club for the next few years, and hopefully, you've heard me say it many times here, that stability off the pitch, coaching, the stability on the pitch and the playing group, if we can get that right, because of the quality of people that we now have in the organisation right from the top, that will bring success.
That's great, thanks David. Right, we're almost at time. Does anybody have a question they'd like to put before we finish? Thank you, Helen.
Johan, for you again, really. Decision making on the pitch. So this is probably an appropriate time. 2 minutes to go. Do we take the kick and close it out, or do we go for the bonus point?
What's the score?
There we go.
Aye.
Bit like the other week, you know. Okay, there's 4 points in it, so we can get beaten if they get a try.
So we're leading 4 points, and there's 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And we got a penalty, and we're on 3 tries.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We have to go for the corner. It boils down to the Newcastle and the Anglo Welsh.
We lost it.
No, but I mean there was 8 minutes. So I'll give you that one. We probably could have and should have gone for the post and maybe got to 7 points. But you know, again, I'll have to live and die with the player's decision, and even if I make decisions, and therefore, you know, if I've won more games than losing games, leading and decide to go for the corner, and it's not about me, and it's about trusting the captain on the field and the decision making. Because it's so small margins, you know, you kick to the corner, you win the ball. If you don't score, and there's another set phase, 2 or 3 minutes are gone, they have to go 80 meters to score. You know, if you do take the 3 points, we've seen what happened with Northampton. They've won the kick-off, and then they run through and they score a try anyhow. So you're not guaranteed of anything.
Wrap us up this evening. Oh, no one. Oh, there's a question right at the back.
To Stephen, really. I think you mentioned at the last fans forum about a new mega store being built. Just wanted to know if there was an update on that, and is it going to be what we got? After seeing some of the French grounds, they're far superior than what we currently have.
Yeah, we're funnily enough, just this week we've been in conversations with architects and things. As you know, things don't just happen with regards to. So if we put a new retail offering in, it won't just be in the same shell as where our current one is. So you know, we are looking at a raft of potential changes at the stadium, and that would be part of it. So would it be better than what it is now? Absolutely. Would it be what we're looking for, without giving too much away, is a, you know, the whole supporter experience, whether it's on a match day or not, to be much better. You know, therefore you need more space, you need different offerings in there. You know, do you need food and drink in there? You know, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the supporter, really, about what do they want from a retail store. If they come to the stadium, they want a one-stop shop, they want to be able to get their tickets, they want to be able to get their merchandise and those things in the same nice, spacious area. So yes, it's still very much on the plans. We are looking at options at the moment, and then we're looking at cost and the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, obviously we've got the store here, we've got the sort of superior store that's in Gloucester Quays as well, which is obviously a more pleasant shopping experience. But yeah, there will be upgrades to the store at some stage, but it won't happen overnight. But there are active conversations going on at the moment with the planners and all the rest of it, and we're hoping to at least give some idea on scale and time scales, etc., in the next 6 months of what that's going to look like.
Thank you, Steve. And that brings us to a close. And I think you agree that's been an hour and a half of really, really good interaction between yourselves as supporters and our panel at the top here. Sorry if we didn't get around to all your questions, but I think you agree that everyone here has answered the questions as openly and as honestly as possible. If I could just remind you, our friends from the Heritage Committee are at the back on your way out. But for now, I'd just like to say thank you to Johan Ackerman, Martin St Quinton, Stephen Vaughan, David Humphreys, and of course a thank you to yourselves and all the other Gloucester supporters for continuing to support us. Thank you, good night.